This is going to be your guide for efficient Eevee training in Pokemon Sun and Moon. So I already have an Eevee training guide, but I will admit that it is not the best. It's from the early days of Pokemon Sun and Moon, as you can see, November 20th right here. And pretty much it's just about the locations and the idea of horde battling. So yeah, you can go to like Route 2 and get most of the EVs right there. And there weren't really a lot of specific in-depth things. Pretty much, you get a power item. How do you get a power item? Well, just get a power item, get Pokey Rust, and then KO 7 Pokemon. And that's pretty much how Eevee training works. But this video, I want to do a better job talking about that. And first, let's start off with Pokey Rust, because that is going to be one of the crucial parts. And also, I'm going to show you guys how to Eevee train without power items and still do it in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So as you can see right here, let's see if I can pull this up in an easy way. Let's just bring my mouse. So as you can see right here, there's a purple smiley face. That means that your Pokemon has been infected by and cured of Pokey Rust. So that means we can't transfer it anymore, but this Pokemon is going to be gaining double effort values from any battle that it's in. Now, a quick idea of what EVs do. You might hear people talking about it. Pretty much, an effort value just gives your Pokemon stat points. At level 100, 4 effort values equals 1 more stat point. And you max out at 552, thus maxing out that Pokemon's stats as well as with the IVs. But also, you can see right here that Pokey Rust looks like a status condition. That's a big purple thing that appears on the Pokemon's page right here. And this shows that the Pokemon currently has Pokey Rust and it can spread Pokey Rust. So that's going to be a pretty big deal with it. However, Pokey Rust will only spread to adjacent Pokemon. So that means Primarina and Pheromosa can get it. So you can either try to do this for entire parties of Pokemon, because Pokey Rust will spread very easily, or if you're trying to go for specific Pokemon, make sure it's at least touching that Pokemon, therefore it is adjacent and it is meeting those requirements. But as you can see, I have like random Pokemon that do and don't have Pokey Rust, and the idea is you always want to keep a couple of Pokemon with Pokey Rust around. So as you can see right here, I could technically just grab all of my Abras and then move them over to my party, and then we can use this to kind of start spreading that Pokey Rust around. And I'll have Abras that I can just either give away for other Pokey Rust, or at least I have that backup Pokey Rust Pokemon somewhere in my PC box. Now, Pokey Rust just spreads randomly after a Pokemon battle, and you can even run away from these battles. So pretty much get into a wild Pokemon battle, and then run away, and then repeat until all of your Pokemon have Pokey Rust. Now, Pokey Rust will only last for 1 to 4 days randomly, and it's based off of real life time. So say if you encounter Pokey Rust, you save your game, you turn it off for a week, and you don't put that Pokemon in the PC box, well, you're going to be pretty screwed right there, because now that Pokemon, like, it'll be cured, and it won't have a chance of spreading it anymore. So let's see, yeah, the one Abra got it, and 2 Abras got it. So that's pretty much just going to show the Pokey Rust spreading right there. Also, it is recommended that you have like a high level Pokemon in the first slot. That way you can run away from battles. So now because of that, the Pokey Rust will spread exponentially. As for getting Pokey Rust for the first time, it can happen in a wild Pokemon encounter that the odds of finding a wild Pokemon with Pokey Rust are 1 in 20,000. But due to the nature of how fast it spreads, it's not really a problem. That once one person gets it, well, it's pretty much GG from there. And you can probably just talk to people that whenever you're trading with people, request that they can give you a Pokey Rust Pokemon just for a normal kind of reject trade. Also, if you trade enough on the Wonder Trade, you'll eventually end up with Pokey Rust. Ask for friends and stuff like that. And then that's when you get yourself a ton of Pokey Rust Pokemon, and then you can give it away. So getting Pokey Rust really isn't an issue if you are active about it, and you can still have a very small chance of getting it for yourself inside of your own game. Also, I'm going to catch this Abra because efficiency and whatnot. It could have synchronized, and that could be a pretty cool thing. Now, a quick note I do want to make before we get into SOS battles is that the Pokepelago is just really good for Eevee training if you're doing it passively. That say you know there's Pokemon that you want to Eevee train, but you're feeling lazy or you don't have the time for it, just put them into the Pokepelago. That once you have the maxed out Pokepelago, you're going to be gaining 4 effort values per 30 minutes or per 15 minutes. So all you really want to do is you want to put in your Pokemon for 63 cycles, and while that may sound like a lot, even without beans, that means it's only going to be 30 something hours, so less than a day and a half, and you're going to max out 1 stat for the EV. So let's just do 1 random Pokemon, because I don't have any Pokemon I need to EV train right now. But then, yeah, you just go on the bottom and you serve them the appropriate drink. So, Superior, that's a Pokemon you want to put, like, Special Attack into. Then you want to go and do an insane amount of play sessions. But it actually goes by pretty fast, and that tells you the time right there. So, 63 play sessions, that's going to max out the EVs. And you can do 18 Pokemon at a time. So you take 18 Pokemon, you max out 1 stat in less than a day if you're using up all of your beans, and then in 2 days you have 18 fully EV trained Pokemon. And also you can do this for very specific stuff. Let's say you want a Pokemon that only has 200 EVs. Well, then you set it down to 50, and I feel that while this isn't the fastest, it's kind of like the most efficient way of doing it. So we get a Pokemon on right here. It says that the session ends in 31 hours, so then you just put in enough Pokebeans to speed that up by like 12 hours or something. Yeah, do something like that. Boom, 38 beans. And then that's going to be doing 18 Pokemon. So that means in 2 days, you're doing 76 beans. And then you're fully EV training 18 Pokemon right there. So even if you don't have the power items, I feel that this is going to be one of the best ways of EV training. But if you need the Pokemon now, then that's what the rest of this video is for setting up and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a good way. After you like chain it with breeding, after you chain it with hyper training, you just EV train your Pokemon like this. They'll be ready in a couple days. And then you go to the battle tree, you get your power items, you do it faster, and boom, super fast competitive Pokemon. So let's get back to the rest of this guide as I'm just going and picking up random Pokebeans. And do we get a shiny? No, we do not. And now let's talk about EV training, because pretty much the biggest thing I wanted to cover was going to be that Pokey Rust, since it is going to add on to the amount of EVs that you get. Now, in my guide, I did talk about SOS battles doubling the amount of EVs that you receive in a battle. Now, pretty much, it's going to stack with Pokey Rust because Pokey Rust doubles. So every EV you receive in a battle that is SOS, so once the SOS is started, every Pokemon you KO will count for that, including the original Pokemon. So once that's started and you have Pokey Rush, you're getting 4 times the amount of EVs from either the Pokemon or a power item. Now, power items make this insane, and that's why after 7 SOS Pokemon you faint, boom, that stat is maxed right there for EVs. However, Pokemon is kind of funny in the way that you need to have an EV trained Pokemon to do well in the battle tree, therefore you can get enough battle points to get a power item to use for EV training. So that's what this part of the video is going to be about. So on Cerebi, you guys might not notice this, but you can go into the top left and it says like Pokemon Sun and Moon Pokedex. So go to the Sun and Moon Pokedex and you can see stuff right here. Sort Pokemon by stats. So this will actually rank Pokemon in their stat total. You can also rank them by effort value. So you can click on one of these randomly and you can see every Pokemon and what effort values they give. So we have Doduo giving 1 point, Dodrio giving 2 points, and this is going to be the key to getting efficient EV training before you even get access to power items if you want to make some Pokemon happen really quick. So what we were looking for is we're looking for 2 EV Pokemon, and then we can KO them really fast. So then we do the math, 2 times 4, that's going to be 8 times 19, that is going to go and give us 152. Now the reason why I said 152 is because we can actually give a Pokemon 100 EVs by feeding them medicine. So each of these will give 10 for each, so if we buy a hit point up, that's going to give us 10 EVs in hit points, which means we are going to have to buy 10, so it does get kind of pricey. However, once you complete the Ultra Beast mission, you get 1 million Pokédollars. Also, one thing I do recommend for making a lot of money is the Poképelago, that if you do the rare treasure hunting for the Poképelago, the money just adds up. Like, all the money I have currently, just from doing the Poképelago for X amount of days, I don't really know. And then you can also get money in the Pony Coast, because by breaking these boulders, there's a chance you can get star pieces or comet shards and crazy stuff like that. So the money will add up if you're doing this method. And as you can see, a Stardust, that's 1,000. Star pieces, I believe, are 5,000. And then you get like a comet shard and you make insane amounts of money. So it's pretty much how much time you want to spend. And also if you just have like a lot of loose change. Because remember, this is just going to be like the starting way of getting your EVs going, because once you already have enough money off of the EVs, well then you just buy a power item instead. You don't have to use carbos, protein, any kind of other items for the EV boosting. So then you just kind of do the traditional EV training method with 1 EV Pokemon. So now I went and compiled a list for the best Pokemon to start your EV training with, and Ditto I think is just pretty awesome, that even though it only gives 1 hit point EV, so you can see on Cerebi that this is what you're looking for right here, even though it only gives 1, if you do the Memento Ditto setup to where you have a Ditto automatically killing itself while the other one is recycling a Lepa Berry, well, all you have to do is just mash A, and then you'll eventually get enough Dittos to pass. So it is only 1, but remember, it's 1 times 4, and then if you've already done the items and stuff, you pretty much just grind out a ton of Dittos, and then you get to catch yourself a 4, 5, or 6 IV Ditto, which will help for breeding, which will help for the future, and then you'll have a max hit point Pokemon by just doing an AFK method, or you can stack multiple Ditto encounters as well. So Ditto, that's going to be Mount Hokulani, and that's going to be from the Ditto setup. If you want to speed up your hit point EV training, Glalie does give 2 hit point EVs, and it is a pretty frequent spawn when you are doing a Snorunt SOS in Mount Lanakila. So these SOS battles will work just fine, and even then you should be pretty safe with the Snorunt because it still gives 1 hit point values as well. Next up, we're going to be looking at attacks. So the Alolan Dugtrio, you can find it in the Hyena Desert, and then we'll also go and give you 2 attack points in the Alolan form. So that's going to be a really nice way of boosting your attack by doing that, and then you just do Alolan Doug Trio SOS battles. Now also, pretty much standard SOS stuff. You bring a Pokemon with False Swipe, you bring a Pokemon that can KO that Pokemon, and then you set up a ton of Adrenaline Orbs, and then you play it safe, and you're good to go. So some of the SOS battles will vary, but once you learn like the specific tech that just makes it go faster, then you're going to be pretty good and efficient by doing that. After that, 19 KOs, and that will be maxed after you've used your medicine. Looking at some other ones, we have Defense on Route 17 because you do Graveler SOS battles. So yeah, you go into Graveler, Graveler gets 2 defense, and then you're going to be set up just like that. The next one is going to be for Speed. Now, Speed works out really well because you can go and find Raticate or Fearow. Fearow on Mount Hokulani, so that's going to give you 2 speed points right there. And then we also have the Raticate. So Raticate will give you 2 speed points, as well as like Rattata and all kinds of other Pokemon. So there's a ton of different like wild Pokemon encounters that will eventually snowball into 2 speed EVs. But you can find the Raticate really commonly across the Alola region, or you just go to Hokulani and then you're going to be able to do it off of the Fearow as well. And then we're also going to be looking into special attacks. So yeah, Pony Gauntlet, Pony Canyon. Just go and do some SOS battles with the Golduck, and Golduck is going to give you 2 special attack points for that, while also giving you a lot of experience. So you can also double down, like Beware is another Pokemon that gives you 2 attack. So if you're also trying to grind Pokemon up to level 100 for Hyper Training, well then just bring Pokemon that you want to max their attack. Then it takes hundreds of Beware KOs to pull up a Pokemon to level 100, so that means all the Pokemon that you're getting to level 100, they're going to be gaining EVs, and then that is going to work for giving them max attack. So if you're doing batches, that's a good way of doing it. Same with the Golduck, that if you want to gain a lot of experience, Golduck gives an insane amount of experience, has a good call rate, and then you just do the Golduck battles while gaining special attack EVs as well. And it kind of doesn't matter, like depending on what you're doing, with the Dittos, with the experience grinds from Beware or Golduck, you don't necessarily need the power items, you just kind of min-max it with things that you are already doing. And then we're also going to be looking at special defense. So special defense, Tentacruel, Pony Wilds is going to work out just fine. And that is pretty much going to be it right there. However, I do want to bring up some other points. Now, say you've already used some of your Pokemon and you need to cut down some EVs. Well, there are EV reducing berries, and I strongly recommend that in your Poképelago, you max out your berry island, because then you just go and plant a ton of berries. Like, look at this right here. Pomeg Berry, that's going to be minus 10 hit point EVs. While I go and plant all these, now each of these are giving me like 12 to 14 per harvest. I think it's 14. I don't remember the exact amount. But yeah, that's 6 times 14. That's going to be able to reset an insane amount of effort values if you do screw it up, and then you can do that with all the other berries. As you can see, I have a good stockpile for EV training right here. So if you guys enjoyed this EV training guide, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.